Hello, this is Learn the Burner, and I'm Garrett.
And this is Noel.
And today we're going to talk about Bioshock Infinite. Today is only going to be about Bioshock Infinite, the storyline. Doing more than that would take probably too much time. So today is going to be strictly about Bioshock Infinite. I'm going to be telling you about the complicated, the beyond complicated storyline of Bioshock Infinite.
All right, looking forward to it.
Have you played the game?
Yes, sir. It's
How
been a
long ago
while.
did you play it?
Probably like right after it came out was the last time I played it.
So I was like, let's see. Okay, the game came out.
Like 2012 or something.
Let's see. The game came out 2013. Oh no, 2015. Yeah. Okay.
I say
So here's the storyline.
2013.
So basically, here's it goes. You start out. You're playing as Booker DeWitt. Booker is his name.
Yeah.
Um, basically a mysterious figure, or two people take you on a rowboat to go rescue a girl named Elizabeth and bring her back to New York. And the purpose of that is to pay off your gambling debts. That is the beginning of the story. So you arrive at so whenever you get there, you go to a lighthouse and then no, sorry, you go to a rocket, that's right. And you go up in the sky and then you get to the city called Columbia. The city of Columbia is just this big old city in the sky. Okay. So you get there, um, and there's like a raffle going on, and it's all kind of weird. And right when you get there, you have to flip a coin, and there's like two people that are talking to you weird. Uh, and you also have the letters AD engraved on your hand for some reason, and so you don't know why that is. Um, and then right when you get there, the cops of the city Columbia notice that you have AD written on your hand, like burned into your hand. And turns out, like, that's what makes you the false shepherd, having the AD on the back of your hand. So they start trying to shoot you, and you're running from them. And, you kill everybody that gets in your way and all that stuff. And then, so you run to the city and you're looking for this girl, Elizabeth. And eventually you find her. And she's up in like this big tower that's shaped like an angel. She's at the top. And so you're talking to her, and she's like, she's basically been locked in this tower her whole life. She's like 20 or something like that. And so you get there and she's just kind of psyched that someone's breaking her out because she's been like Rapunzel or Sleeping Beauty or whatever you call it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah. Damsel in
So
distress.
exactly. So yeah, so you two team up because she's like, okay, I'm down to get out of here too. So pretty much right when you meet Elizabeth, you find out she has a tearing power. Okay, so this is where multi-dimensional stuff comes in. The story pretty much takes off from here. So Elizabeth has the ability to rip up a tear into another dimension at any time in any place, pretty much. So like throughout the game, she'll like open up a tear and grab you some ammo from the other dimension and throw it to you. You know.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing, Elizabeth is missing her pinky finger, which is, you know, not important until the end. Then it's important.
It's not important until it's very important.
That's right. It's just like a small detail, but it'll come up later. Basically, you're trying to escape. You're gonna take her to New York to pay the guy because you have crazy gambling debt, and he's gonna pay you off. But she wants to go to Paris, but you're lying to her about where you're taking her, just so she'll go along. like in the game.
Hmm?
Are you following along so far?
Yeah, I'm like, I forgot all about that. I'm like, I forget that you were sent there to go pick her up. I thought you were just like, I completely forgot the start of the game. So I'm like, no way.
Yeah, at the very beginning, you don't even really know why. You're just in a rowboat. These two people are rowing you to the rocket that takes you to Columbia, and they're like, okay, get in this rocket, save this girl, and we'll pay you. That's pretty much that's the whole driving force beyond the game. They're like, okay, I'm gonna save this girl.
Yeah, but they're the ones that are like making you flip these coins and do all these like little side missions and stuff.
Right. Okay. So it turns out you don't know at the time, but those two people in the rowboat that take you to there, the Lutesses, Lutece, Lutess. That's their last name. So Robert Lutess and Rosalind Lutess. Their story becomes clear later. Like you don't know what their deal is, but they seem to just keep popping up around you, and like they ask you to flip a coin whenever you first meet them, and you call it, and it always lands on heads. Like you call heads, and then they have a chart. Like they're wearing like a chalkboard thing, and it has like 100 dashes under, uh, or 100 tallies under heads,
Mm,
and zero under tails. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So that is a like a precursor or like a hint, to what's happening here. Which eventually you'll find out, this is a whole time loop type situation. Um,
Is aren't all the checks under head and then he's like the first tails or something?
no, 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 no. It's under heads every time, and whenever you do it, it's heads again. He adds another tally to heads.
Hmm. That predetermined destination.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So the theme throughout the game is constants and variables. Okay.
All
So
right.
like in everything, there's things that are constant, things that never change, and then variables, things that can change, can be anything, whatever. And that's a thing that keeps getting brought up throughout the game is the constants and the variables. So apparently flipping heads in that moment is a constant, is what they're getting at.
Mm.
What that means, I don't really know. You know what I mean?
It's an inevitable thing. Interesting.
Okay, so let's introduce Songbird. Songbird is a giant mechanical bird. Okay. Um, he was made by some scientist. I don't know. I forget who. It's not really important. But a scientist made this giant mechanical bird that is supposed to protect Elizabeth. That's the whole purpose beyond the bird. So that's it. Just big bird, and
It's the best part
it'll
of the
come up
game.
again. Yeah, yeah, it'll come up. Okay, now here's where things get a little complicated. So let's go back to before the game started. So in
My God.
1892, Booker was born. Okay, the main character. He was born.
All
Okay.
right.
Uh oh, sorry, no. He was born earlier than that. He was born 1874. That's right. So 1874, he's born, and um, so that happens in 1890. There's the Battle of Wounded Knee, which is he was in a war. Okay, he was, I don't know, a teenager at that time or something like that, and it was like a slaughter of Native Americans, and that didn't really jive well with him. He was a soldier and he did that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
right after that, the year after that, he goes to become baptized. Okay. So Booker goes into the river, there's a priest there. He's about to be baptized, and then he declines it. Like he gets out of it. Right there, Booker, did not get baptized. So he goes off and he becomes a Pinkerton, like a detective or whatever you call it. And he gets a drinking problem and he gets a massive debt, with gambling. And so that's his life. Now, here's where the other flip of the coin moment can happen. So he goes to the Battle of Wounded Knee, and then he goes to the river to get baptized a year later, and he does get baptized. Okay?
All right.
So in the moment, he can decide whether to get baptized or to not get baptized. So when he does get baptized, he becomes baptized and he takes on a new name and a new persona and a new way of life. Whenever he does take on a new name, it's Zachary Comstock. Okay. So
All right.
at this point, Booker goes to the river. He gets baptized. He names himself Zachary Comstock. He starts living a new life to where he devotes everything to like God and living the American type dream. Okay. So he meets up with Rosalind Lutece, Zachary Comstock. And Rosalind Lutece is basically a scientist who is creating multi-dimensional technology. Basically, she's creating rips in time, and that's her deal. She's experimenting with that. So her and Zachary Comstock team up, and they're working together, and they eventually come up with the city in the sky, Columbus, because that's just what they want to do. So at the same time, Rosalind Lutece has been researching and developing technology, and she found out that in every universe where Booker declines the baptism, she is actually Robert Lutece, born as a man. But then in every universe where Comstock becomes Comstock by Booker getting baptized, she is Rosalind Lutece. Okay, the same
Wow.
person. Not twins, but the same person in different realities. So at this point, them two, Robert and Rosalind, are working together. They're in each other's universes back and forth. It's just a madhouse between them two. Zachary Comstock is in it as well. He's using technology to gather wealth, to build this crazy floating city,
Yeah.
To make predictions and then basically fool everybody into thinking he's a prophet of some kind, because he's looking in the future and making predictions of cool stuff, So that's what's going on now. Are you still with me?
Yeah. He's the man of God now. He's turned himself over.
That's right. So all this experimentation with multidimensional stuff rapidly aged Zachary Comstock and deteriorated his health. It made it to where he couldn't have kids. Okay, but he wanted a kid, so he had a wife who just goes by Mrs. Comstock, and but he didn't want to adopt a kid. He wanted someone from his own bloodline, right? So using the technology from Rosalind Lutece and Robert Lutece, he looks at himself in the other reality, which is Booker, and takes Booker's daughter. And here's how to do it. So Booker's in massive debt, gambling debt. So Zachary has Robert Lutece go to Booker's reality. Or, well, he's probably already there because Robert is in Booker's reality. But anyway, so Robert offers Booker a ton of money. Like he'll say he pays off his gambling debts for his daughter, Anna. Booker named his daughter Anna. Okay, so Anna DeWitt, which is why he engraved AD on his hand. That's his daughter's initials. So, anyways, so Robert takes Anna, and they're going through the portal back to their dimension, the Zachary Comstock world, the floating Columbus world. And at the very last minute, Booker's like, hold up, I don't really want to sell my daughter. This is a bad idea. So he starts running after them, and he's grabbing them, and, they're fighting to get through the portal, and he's pulling them back. And so they barely get through the portal, but then Anna's pinky finger, just the tip of it, gets chopped off by the portal. Okay. So the baby Anna is in Comstock's universe now. The little pinky is still in Booker's universe, which is why. Okay. So Comstock then renames Anna DeWitt Elizabeth Comstock. Okay. So he renames her. So now Elizabeth Comstock is in Zachary Comstock's world where there's multidimensional experimentation going on. Since Elizabeth has both of her pieces of her body in multiple dimensions, the pinky and her actual body, in 2 dimensions, that's why she has powers to create rips in time. So, to keep the powers calm down, they keep her in this big old statue that's shaped like an angel. That underneath there's a thing called a siphon, which Rosalind, Robert, and Zachary created to pretty much control Elizabeth's powers and to use the powers for their own advantage and doing their own multi-dimensional stuff.
Siphoning off her energy or something?
Exactly. Siphoning off her powers and using it for their own experimentation.
Well, shoot. It's like the chicken or the egg. Is that the reason why they have these quantum powers? It's because they're siphoning off her, or they had it first and then created her, then now using her as a battery or something?
That's a good point. They created the multidimensional stuff, and then they gave the powers to Elizabeth indirectly, and then Elizabeth has the powers, and she's generating them on her own. It's like a snowball effect.
Indeed.
Yeah. Throughout this time, from the point of when baby Elizabeth became in Comstock's universe, and up until she, became about 20 or so, to where Booker is in her reality now, there's been time warps opening up throughout the town. Okay, because since they're experimenting, things are going kind of haywire. Comstock created a fake reason of how Elizabeth came to be. He told the whole town that she was like an immaculate conception, basically. Okay, he is a
he had a virgin birth with her, something like.
Yeah, like that, exactly. And then so Comstock's wife was not cool with this. She was like, that's kind of weird, and I don't really like that you went and got this girl from the other Booker, and she didn't understand everything that was going on. So Zachary Comstock had her killed. Okay.
Damn.
So he had her killed, and he had Robert and Rosalind killed as well. Okay, the 2 Lutesses. So now he killed off the 3 people. So the only people who know about Elizabeth's true upbringing is Zach and Booker. Okay, so the town has had time rips, randomly all over the place. There was one guy who was he was like a businessman type guy. There was a time warp that opened up to this underwater city called Rapture that this guy made 50 years in the future in another dimension. And in that world, they're messing with plasmids, from Bioshock 1.
Sir.
So this businessman and the guy that made the Songbird teamed up, and they made what they call Vigors, which are their own versions of plasmids. So, that's pretty interesting. They went into the Rapture universe and figured that out and brought the Vigors over. So the thing about Robert Lutece and Rosalind Lutece is even though they were killed in this dimension, they still exist in pretty much every dimension because they are pretty much ghosts at this point. They go in and out of every dimension anytime they want. So they're back in the dimension. And at this point, they want to bring down the whole Columbia Comstock situation. Okay. So that's why they go to Booker and they say, "Hey, Booker, go get this girl named Elizabeth, take her to New York," which is their whole plan into getting, you know, getting revenge on Zachary Comstock, essentially.
Yeah.
So, okay. So back to the Booker universe. So Booker is with Elizabeth and they're trying to escape. To control the songbird, you have to play 4 specific notes at a time. Okay. And they don't know what it is. Elizabeth doesn't know. Nobody knows what it is except Zachary Comstock. So Zachary Comstock, he's, old and running around and stuff. So Elizabeth and Booker trying to get out. Songbird's trying to attack him. And then suddenly, here's the point where in every universe, Booker gets killed by the songbird at this moment when they're about to get on the airship to get out of town. Okay, so Songbird's coming, and all of a sudden a time rip opens up, and it is suddenly Booker is 50 or like he's in the future at some point in New York. Elizabeth is like 90 years old. And what had happened was Elizabeth brought Booker to the future at this very moment to tell him how to make the songbird follow his instructions. So she gives him a note that says the notes to play to control the songbird. And basically, she is controlling, or she's leading the revolution to destroy all of America, pretty much. Because at some point, the city of Columbus succeeds from America, and then Zachary Comstock's agenda is to go back and take over America. So his whole plan is to do that, and then whenever he dies, have Elizabeth take over, and then as long as Booker doesn't interfere, that's what happens. Like, his reality happens as long as Booker does not come into town and take Elizabeth out. So Zachary Comstock knew this because he has been messing around with multidimensional portals and he's been looking in the future, and he knows. And he knows that Booker has AD engraved on his hand because whenever he sold his daughter, he felt so bad that he burned AD into his hand so he'd never forget. So that's why he told everybody in the town that the false prophet has AD on his hand, and if you see anybody with that, turn him in.
Oh.
Are you still on board?
No, yeah, I am. I'm like, man, I did not pay attention when I was playing this game, apparently.
Neither did I. I went back and did a ton of research. This story is beyond immense.
Like he was taking over America? When was that happening?
Right. Okay, so at the very beginning, Zachary Comstock, got baptized. He became Zachary Comstock. He took on a new way of life, which was basically worshiping God and living his version of the American dream. And when he started doing scientific research, that was kind of sketchy. America was like, hey, you can't be doing that. So he succeeded from America. And then he eventually came back and planned on just attacking America for some reason, just taking it over. And his plan was to do that and have Elizabeth carry on with his will, to do that. And in some realities, that's what happened. Every time the songbird kills Booker, which is what happened every single time, that's how the future would end up until the future Elizabeth pulled the past Booker into her reality the reality where she's 90 and leading a revolution, attacking New York, to tell him how to stop the songbird in the past. So that's what happens. And the
Oh,
Lutesses also don't want that happening. The Lutesses are like, okay, this is no longer cool. I, don't want America to be attacked, basically. So that's why they call Booker and they tell him, go get Elizabeth.
well, they're like literally like ghosts on revenge. Like they're already dead in like the most current timeline.
That's right. They are dead in all the timelines with Booker coming to Columbus. They are dead in that universe.
But they seem to be able to rip holes in space and be able to like show up whenever they want.
That's correct. They pretty much do, and they're a little kooky about it. So, okay, so Booker. So now Booker comes back. They control the songbird. Okay. They do the 4 notes, which is CAGE, which spells cage. It's like ironic. And they tell the songbird to destroy the siphon. Okay. And the siphon is the thing that is keeping Elizabeth's powers under control. Okay, making it to where she can only tear little rips, to grab ammo or
No.
little things like that, just to look over at Paris, and then close it. But since they control the songbird at this point, the songbird destroys the siphon and Elizabeth gets all of her powers. Okay. So at this point, like, she is pretty much a multi-dimensional being. They go back to Comstock, kill him. And Booker still does not know. It's at this point where it's explained to Booker that, the Lutesses are the reason for bringing him here. As soon as he went over into the Comstock universe, he forgot that he even had a daughter and all that stuff. And he didn't know why AD was engraved on his hand. And his memory started filling with something else as soon as he transferred into the other universe. That made him just think he was working as a detective, and
False
he never had
memories.
a daughter. Huh?
False memories. Wow.
Exactly. That's what happened. And apparently that's what happens to everybody. Like, each time Robert Lutece came over to Rosalind's universe, that's what's happened, Okay, so at this point, Elizabeth tells Booker all this and explains, the battle of Wounded Knee and when he got baptized, whether he decided to get baptized or to not get baptized, he becomes, himself, Booker, or Zachary Comstock. So Elizabeth leads him back to the river and goes back in time to where the point where Zachary Comstock came into being, which was the baptism. And since Booker knew about it at this point, they killed Booker before he can become Zachary Comstock. And that is the only way that they could have stopped the cycle from happening. So at the end of the game, the Elizabeths from all the dimensions come up and they drowned you.
Brutal.
And that's pretty much it. That is the complete story. I mean, there's a ton of little things that I missed out on, like
the lighthouses and the multiverse or whatever. Oh.
yeah, I mean, at the end, it goes into explain the multiverse where, this cycle has happened, thousands of times, where every time Comstock comes into existence, he wants a kid and he goes over into the Booker universe, grabs the Booker's kid, and then Booker comes back to the Comstock universe to get her back. And it's happened a million times in a loop.
It
Which is
happens
why,
every time.
yes, every single time. Every time. And it's only to where um, the future Elizabeth calls Booker to the future to teach him how to control a songbird. That's the first time that they fixed it, when they controlled the songbird, destroyed the siphon. Elizabeth got all her powers and then figured out, what was going on, what the truth was. And yeah, that's how it happened.
So it's just like a freaking if Avengers Endgame ripped this off. Pretty sure it's like I've seen every single universe, and this is the only one where this will succeed. Like
yeah, yeah.
pretty
Yeah,
much an
it's
end
like
game ending right there.
that's right. Who's the doctor? What's his name?
Dr. Cumberbatch.
Yeah, that's his name. There you go. Or it was like one answer to the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is what happened. Yes. So this game is a pretty good game. I like the visuals are great. Like I remember whenever you first get to the city, of Columbus, you're like, or sorry, Columbia. You're looking around, and the graphics are great at the time, and
Oh
it's got
yeah.
the Bioshock feel to it. It's a
Oh
great game.
yeah. It's missing Big Daddies, but it's got like what is it?
Yeah, it had handyman
What
instead of Big Daddies.
robotic George Washingtons or something. I don't know what the hell those guys were.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's robotic George Washingtons. It's very, very, um, you know, 1800s type thing.
Yeah, the leap from like cowboys and Indians to, fantastic flying cities. It was
Yeah.
pretty cray.
Okay. So, what do you think about this storyline?
Some It's a lot to wrap my head around. My goodness, I didn't even know that was going on when I was playing the damn game. I was like, it's a pretty basic um, Bioshock gameplay, but they got a little extra something rolling around in the background.
Oh yeah, playing the game. Thinking back, I didn't even realize half of this stuff was happening. Like, I mean, yeah, they make it pretty obvious that your character Booker becomes Comstock, but other than that, I didn't realize anything about the Lutesses. Being like the driving force behind the whole thing. I didn't realize that Songbird was even, important. I thought it was just like a boss that I thought was cool to put in there. Um,
Yeah, that was the coolest part. That was like the best boss fight. But it's uh, one of my favorite things about Bioshock is like how they like go out of their way to make like a convoluted explanation with their story for like simple game mechanics. Like the Vita chamber and like the something's gotta control the bird. It's gotta be these four notes that spell cage. I'm like, I tried so hard not to laugh out loud when you said that. I'm like, oh my god, I forgot that the
yeah,
bird was controlled by musical notes.
yeah, it's four notes, and you have to play them just four notes, one at a time. You have to play with a specific instrument. That's the windpipes that the George Washington robots have.
Of course. Of
Uh
course the George Washington robots have them.
huh. Yeah.
Because nobody but Comstock can control them and the robots. They're basically the same
Yeah.
people. Uh,
Is there any questions you got? Like, do you completely understand what happened? Because this is a very, very complex story. Anytime you talk about multi-dimensional type things, there's so many loopholes, and there's a ton of stuff that
yeah,
could be poked at.
definitely hits the quantum questions. I was like, they changed the girl's name or something. Like, I guess nobody has any memories. It wouldn't matter anyway. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Comstock just renamed her Elizabeth for whatever reason.
So even if anybody remembers, they won't remember. I guess I don't know. It's I'm not, besides the timey-wimey stuff, I'm not too confused on what's going on. But
All right, cool. Well, any last thoughts on the Bioshock series?
on the Bioshock series, they make three more of them. You kidding me? I miss Bioshock.
Yeah, I don't think they are though. I don't see any plans for any upcoming Bioshock games.
Why?
I know.
What studio published it?
Uh, 2K Boston. Yeah,
And
2K Boston or Irrational Games.
2K's got their head above water. I don't see why they wouldn't explore it. Did this game sell really well, or was it kind of a bomb?
Um,
I played it off a Redbox, but I didn't buy it until much later. So
okay, it sold over 3.7 million copies and sold 11 million copies overall. So no, this game. Wait, it was Game of the Year.
I
Yeah, it did pretty
forgot.
good. It was Game of the Year in 2013.
Damn. They're like, it was there. We're wrapping it up. We're going all crazy. Why do they have multiplayer in this one? Game would probably still be
I
alive if it did.
Yeah, I don't even know. I didn't even know that the other ones had multiplayer till you told me the other day.
I was like, and it's pretty sick multiplayer too. Can't have too much of a good thing, I guess.
All right. Well, any last things you want to say?
No, I appreciate the information you gave me about Bioshock.
Okay, cool. Well, this has been Learn the Burner. I'm Garrett.
And it was novel.
All right. See you next week.
Later.